No engine, no crew, no fuel stop. For months. Tens of tons of steel, gliding in near total silence through the deep ocean, invisible to sonar, and able to do something no submarine in history has ever done. Sink to the bottom of the sea and wait. For weeks. For months. Without a single human on board. The United States just tested a machine that rewrites the oldest rule of undersea warfare. And it's a direct problem for China, because China's entire plan to control the Pacific is built on keeping American ships and submarines out, on detecting them, on hearing them coming. But that wall was built to catch things that make noise, things with engines, things with crews, things that move. So how do you stop something that just lies on the seabed off your coast, silent, patient, and waits? This is the Manta Ray. And the most dangerous thing about it isn't speed. It isn't a weapon. It's patience.
To understand why this matters, you have to understand the one limit that has ruled undersea warfare for over a century. It was never really the metal. It was the humans inside it. A submarine can only stay down as long as its crew can. People need food. They need clean air. They get exhausted. And the psychological strain of living sealed in a steel tube, hundreds of feet down for weeks on end, is brutal. There's a reason submarine crews are among the most carefully selected people in any military. Even a nuclear submarine, with a reactor that can run for years without refueling, still has to surface, still has to come home. Not because the machine runs out, because the people do. So for 100 years, the real limit of how long, how far, and how quietly you could operate underwater wasn't the technology. It was the endurance of the human being inside. Which raises a question engineers have chased for decades. What if you took the human out entirely?
This is the answer they built. It's called the Manta Ray, named after the giant ocean creature it's shaped like, and for good reason. Officially, it's an extra-large, uncrewed underwater vehicle, an XLUUV. It was built by Northrop Grumman under a program run by DARPA, the Pentagon's Advanced Research Agency, the same organization behind the early internet and GPS. When DARPA builds something, it's usually a glimpse of the next 20 years. The Manta Ray is big. Reports put its wingspan at around 45 feet, with a body about 33 feet long. Its wide, flat, winged shape isn't for looks. It's engineered to glide through water with as little energy and as little noise as possible. In February and March of 2024, off the coast of Southern California, the full-scale prototype went into the water and proved itself. It dove. It surfaced. It turned. It hovered. It anchored itself to the ocean floor. And it did several of those things on its own, with no human at a control panel. Now, one honest point up front, because it matters. The Manta Ray is a prototype, a demonstrator. It passed its sea trials, but it is not yet a fielded weapon patrolling the Pacific. What it is a proof that the hardest parts of this idea actually work, and that alone is enough to change the math. Because of how it moves.
A normal submarine moves with propellers, driven by engines. Even the quietest ones make vibrations and sound. And specialized sonar is built to hear exactly that. China has spent decades laying underwater listening networks across the Pacific for one purpose: to catch the noise of an approaching submarine before it gets close. The Manta Ray doesn't make that noise. It moves in a completely different way. Something called buoyancy-driven gliding. Here's the idea in plain terms. The vehicle pumps seawater in and out of its own body to change how heavy it is. When it makes itself heavier, it sinks. And as it sinks, its winged shape makes it glide forward. When it makes itself lighter, it rises and glides forward again. It falls through the water on purpose in long, shallow arcs. Up and down, forward and forward. The clever part is the energy. The pumps only run for a few minutes at the top and bottom of each arc.
The rest of the time, it's just gliding, silent, using almost no power. No engine running for hours, no propeller spinning, almost nothing for a sonar to grab onto. Gliders like this have existed since the 1960s, but only as small ocean research drones weighing a few hundred pounds. Taking that silent, ultra-efficient gliding and scaling it up to a machine this size is what nobody had done before. And that silence is exactly what turns the Manta Ray into a problem for China's wall.
Let's put it side by side, because this is the heart of why Beijing has to care. China's defense of the Western Pacific is often called an anti-access wall. For decades, they've spent hundreds of billions of dollars building it. Radars, satellites, anti-ship missiles, and vast underwater sonar networks. And that wall is very good at catching a specific list of things: surface ships, aircraft, and traditional submarines. Why? Because all of those share the same fingerprints. They're big, they give off heat, they carry crews, and crucially, they make noise. Engines, propellers, machinery. Now look at what the Manta Ray gives that wall to work with. No propeller, so almost no engine noise. Buoyancy gliding, so almost no vibration. And when it settles onto the seabed and powers down, it isn't moving at all. A silent, cold shape on the ocean floor. No crew, which means it can be sent into the most dangerous water with no life at risk.
Stack those against each other, and the gap is obvious. China didn't build a wall against this. They built a wall against noise, heat, and crews, against things that announce themselves. The Manta Ray announces nothing. So it doesn't break through the wall, it slips underneath it, because the wall is listening for a kind of target the Manta Ray simply isn't. That's not a small crack in China's strategy. It's a hole shaped exactly like the thing they never planned for. Now, the part that changes everything, and it's the ability I opened this video with, the Manta Ray can anchor itself to the ocean floor and go to sleep. When it settles onto the seabed and powers down into a low-energy hibernation, it burns almost no battery. And that does something profound. It stretches a mission far beyond what any normal underwater drone can manage. Instead of running down its power in days, it can wait, dormant on the bottom, for a very long time, then wake up and go. Think about what that means as a threat. This isn't a drone that patrols in circles, burning energy, waiting to be noticed. It's a machine that can be placed on the seabed off a coastline, or across a shipping lane, or near a strategic choke point, and simply left there. Silent, cold, motionless, waiting. An emotionless, silent object resting on the seabed is almost the hardest thing in the world for sonar to find. Sonar hunts for movement and sound. The sleeping Manta Ray offers neither.
This is the real revolution. And it's not the lack of a crew exactly. It's what the lack of a crew unlocks. A machine doesn't get bored. It doesn't need food or air. It doesn't crack under the strain of waiting. So for the first time, a weapon can do the one thing no crewed submarine ever could. It can wait, indefinitely, for exactly the right moment. Patience, the one thing humans underwater never had enough of, just became a weapon.
There's one more design choice that makes the Manta Ray dangerous in a different way, and it solves a problem that has always tied down big undersea vehicles. Most large submarines and underwater craft are so big fully assembled that you can't just put them on a truck or a plane. They're tied to specific bases, dry docks, and ports. The Manta Ray was designed to break apart. It separates into modular sections that each fit inside a standard shipping container. Around 5 of them. Load those containers onto a cargo plane or a ship, send them anywhere in the world, and a small team can reassemble the whole vehicle right there on a dock. No dedicated naval base, no dry dock, no massive construction project. And shipping it straight to where it's needed saves the energy it would have burned traveling there on its own. It also carries things. The Manta Ray was built with multiple payload bays of different sizes, designed for a wide range of missions: sensors to map the seabed, surveillance gear to track other submarines, communications equipment, and potentially smaller drones released mid-mission. Think of it less as a single weapon and more as an underwater truck, or even a mothership. One honest caveat: exactly how much it can carry hasn't been officially confirmed. The real numbers are classified, and figures you'll see quoted online are estimates, not facts. But the design intent is clear. This is a platform meant to bring serious capability anywhere in the world, quietly, and leave it there.
Here's the second half of why this matters. And it's the same brutal arithmetic that's reshaping modern war everywhere. Cost. A single nuclear-powered attack submarine costs somewhere around $3 to $4 billion. It takes years to build. It needs a crew of over 100 highly trained sailors. It demands constant maintenance, resupply, and an entire support structure behind it. And you absolutely cannot afford to lose one. Now compare the Manta Ray. No crew at all. Far cheaper to build, faster to produce. And because there's no human on board, losing one is a budget problem, not a tragedy. You can send it places you would never send a crewed submarine, precisely because there's no life at stake. Stack those against each other and the logic flips. The value of the Manta Ray isn't that it's better than a nuclear submarine. In raw capability, it isn't. The value is that you could build many of them for the price of one submarine, send them into danger freely, and blanket huge areas of ocean with silent, patient machines that no crewed fleet could ever cover continuously. It's the exact same asymmetry we've seen with cheap drones against expensive warships, just moved underwater. The expensive, crewed, irreplaceable platform versus the cheap, crewless, expendable swarm. And the side that fixes that arithmetic first is the side that controls the ocean. Now let's be honest, because the loudest videos about the Manta Ray usually aren't. This is not a story of America having already won. The Manta Ray is still a prototype. Operating uncrewed underwater is genuinely hard. Communicating with something deep below the surface is difficult, and full autonomy, letting the machine make the right decisions with no human in the loop, is still being proven. A demonstrator that passed sea trials is a long way from a fleet on patrol. And China is very much not standing still. Chinese engineers have developed their own manta-shaped underwater drones. China has shown an armed export UUV, and satellite images have revealed very large drone submarines being tested near Hainan Island. Give credit where it's due. They are pushing hard and in some areas moving fast. So the accurate way to see this isn't America is untouchable. It's that a brand new class of weapon has appeared, and the world's two biggest militaries are now racing to master it. The United States has a real lead in one specific thing that's hard to copy quickly: decades of experience building systems that think and decide for themselves. But a lead is not a victory. This race is just beginning.
Step back, and the Manta Ray is a signpost, pointing at where all of this is going. Navies are building toward what they call a hybrid fleet, crewed submarines working alongside large numbers of autonomous machines. The submarines bring judgment and firepower. The drones bring numbers, patience, and reach, watching stretches of ocean no crewed boat could cover around the clock. And the logic underneath it is the one we started with. For a century, the limit of undersea power was the human being. The Manta Ray is the first serious proof that you can lift that limit, that the future of the deep isn't more people crammed into steel tubes, but fewer humans and more machines that can simply outlast them. It's the same trend reshaping the skies and the surface fleet. Concentrate the capability, remove the human from the most dangerous and most tedious parts, and let patience and numbers do the work.
So, why does a single underwater drone that sleeps on the seafloor change everything? Because for 100 years, the deep ocean belonged to whoever could endure it, and endurance meant human beings with all their limits. Food, air, exhaustion, the need always to come home. The Manta Ray removes the human, and in doing that, it hands a weapon the one ability the human never had: the ability to wait. Not to be faster, not to be stronger, just to lie on the bottom of the sea, silent and cold, for as long as it takes, and to be there, ready, the moment it's needed. The most dangerous thing in the ocean is no longer the fastest submarine or the quietest one. It's the one that can simply wait, while the wall built to catch noise hears nothing at all. Patience just became a weapon, and the deep ocean will never be the same.